Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Rift, and I'm very excited today to have Ronnie of RH Media joining me. Ronnie is very outspoken, and she's got a lot of information and insight into gender ideology and what is happening in the schools. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me come on. It's a pleasure.
Do you mind just introducing yourself a little bit to the listeners and what you're up to and your history and how you got into all of this?
Yes. So my name is Ronnie. I was a fellow educator with the Vancouver School Board for 15 years. I resigned in 2021 under duress because of the indoctrination that's happening in our schools. When I resigned with the school board, I created a lot of action, and at that time I was publicly speaking all over BC to let parents know about what was happening in our schools, because I think many people were lost in the masking and the other things that were going on, and we weren't really paying attention to what was going on beyond the walls. So my push is to spread information, get parents to understand what truly is going on in our schools, ask questions, and really start digging deep into what's really going on with our kids, because as you are at work, they're hardwiring your kids to understand and believe something that you may not agree with. And I want parents to really understand that while they're at school and you freely trust staff, which, I mean, I took always a great honor that when parents went to work, I valued that honor that they gave me in trusting their kids with me all day. When parents are at work, they think that school is a safe place and they're getting a great education. And in fact, that's not what's happening. It's completely different. So I started my channel, RH Media, standing for children, in sharing hot topics that are happening in Canada through the Yes, so that parents can understand at a broader scope of what was going on. So I talk about hot topics and news. I give parents solution and action. And I also give them an outlet to share their stories and experiences, hoping that other parents who might live in their area or go to that same school will go, oh my gosh, he goes to my school, or she goes to my school, and wow, there's someone else who thinks like me, because it takes a lot of courage for parents to come forward, because they are gaslit in schools, school board meetings, as you can see, David, that's going on. So
100%. I do see a big reluctance on parents coming forward because every time they speak out, they're making their concerns seem invalid. And the school board has taken this position where, for some reason, they think they know better than the parents. They feel entitled to constantly educate the parents in what's better for their own kids. I can't believe we're at this point. And of course, you're very aware there's a lot of policies in the school and procedures and practices that keep the parents out of the loop. And I was very surprised. This is an ongoing theme. Every time I'm at the school board meetings, it's an ongoing theme that they do not want parents being involved. And I've seen it voted down pretty much every time it comes up. It's incredible. And the other thing that I've seen with the conversation regarding parents is they're actually not even referring to parents anymore as parents. I've noticed a trend. They just say family, right? So in family, although family does sound really nice, and, you know, I really do value family, a parent has more authority, has the authority over their kids, because it's a parent. You know, a family, it could be aunt, uncles, etc. But these people don't have the same authority as a parent. So I'm seeing they're making the language a lot more vague, even when they post something, students, teachers, and family, right? And it's really taking the emphasis off parents and their involvement. And you've been, sounds like you've been extremely active in this. So you started RH Media, you have a website, you're extremely informed and into it. When you got started, can you tell me a little bit about how the overall atmosphere was, because people are starting to pick up now, but you got started at a point, I would say, that was even crazier than now. I feel like when you started speaking up, things were probably at an all-time high of, this is not something that we're going to be discussing publicly.
Well, I think when I started coming out, we were in the middle of lockdowns, fear is pushing really hard. And everybody in the school environment, parent environment, staff environment, we're all in that mindset. Fear. Let's push out some more fear. Keep yourself safe. We're going to kill grandma. All these insanity things. I saw that being pushed out a lot, but I think more alarm bells started going off for me in 2019, towards the end of the year, just before the pandemic came out. I had a school meeting with the principal and all the staff, and we were told that on report cards, any team-based meetings, any outside resources with SLP, pathology, whatever, we could not have the gender words of he, she. We were told to take that all out of forms, and we were to use the word it, they, in the child's name. And at that time, this was before the world became locked down and all of this craziness, and alarm bells started going off for me, going, what's going on here? Like, why are we doing this? And there was an outrage in the classroom, as it's really hard to, sometimes the challenging kids who, struggle at school. When I make that connection or relationship with them and the family, it takes some time. And if I start referring to a child as, hey, go get your homework, they're looking at me like, my name's Bob. You know me. Why are you calling me it? And then, you sever that relationship, and then you have the pushback, and then I'm back to square one, and it's not respectful. And so there was a lot of pushback, and I didn't agree. There was a lot of things I didn't agree to. The social environment at school, I seemed to be the only one that was pushing back on trying to get things normal, because at that time I was in a kindergarten classroom, and the anxiety of 5-year-olds was through the roof. We had to do room clears because a child was throwing desks, screaming, crying. We had children running in another room. It was insanity. It was absolutely insanity. And the heartfelt thing was that when those 5-year-olds went home at the end of the day, not one parent who picked up their child at 3 was told that this episode happened in their own child's classroom. There was no transparency. It was pretty traumatic, right? Child's flipping a desk, 5 years old, right onto a bunch of students, and all these other little kids are running in the room crying and screaming, don't understand what's going on. I was working with a very tall teacher at that time, and his solution to getting this child to stop screaming, because other classrooms were alerting to what was going on. They thought this child was harmed. And the teacher's solution at the time is, and he's, 6'8", like extremely tall. He put his gigantic hand over this child's mouth to get him to stop screaming, because it was terrifying the other kids. And I said to that teacher, I said, you need to move. I'm going to take this child. So I picked him up and I brought him outside, and I let him run off his anxiety, what he was going through. And what people don't know who are substitutes is you don't know the background of that child. And that child actually is going through a therapy for high anxiety disorder. And by doing that, it's triggering that episode that he is going through by a grown man covering his mouth from screaming, because the world is going in chaos. Home is chaotic, the news, the environment, kids are scared, you can't touch your friends, and you have to sit on this sticker and stand on this sticker and wear your mask, and oh my gosh, your mask fell off, and wearing it in gym. Like, it's just the ramping up of fear in the school. I just couldn't comprehend, and I kept challenging it. And the more that I challenged it, the more that I was getting ostracized by my staff, my colleagues. They stopped coming to me when I was outside doing supervision. No one would come and talk to me, because I was the one that was calling stuff out, going, wait a sec, this doesn't make sense. The health and safety slides are saying this, that children's transmission from teacher to child is this. So why are we doing this? Show me the data. Show me the proof. And the more that I kept pushing back, the more that I caused a big rocking in the boat.
Yeah, sounds like you definitely upset some people. I've had a very similar experience. When we changed schools, I brought my daughter, and at the old school, she didn't have to wear a face mask outside. I mean, I had a huge problem with face masks, and we did not wear them going anywhere. But at school, they had to wear them. And I said, every instance that you have that you can take your face mask off, I want you to take it off. When you're outside, you need to breathe in fresh air. And my kids, they're so good because they don't have all these issues. The face mask, I found it within myself. It's dehumanizing, right? It takes away that visual aspect and connection between people and seeing their emotions and relating to other human beings. And it's the same thing with the language. You're referring to kids as it. It's dehumanizing, and it's not appropriate. And all of these little things, they all add up, and kids begin to act out because they want to be noticed, of course. So when I brought my daughter to the new school, I told her in front of the teacher, hey, or I told the teacher, I don't want her wearing a face mask outside. This was about a week into the new school. And she said, she turned down and looked at my daughter and was like, that's okay, sweetie. Just make sure to keep a distance between you and the kids. Yeah, just stretch out your arms. And then I said to the teacher, I said, that's not going to happen. Like, this is not going to happen. I want you to send me the documentation of this rule, right? And I told the teacher, send me the documentation. This is the definition of marginalizing a kid. Literally put them on the side. You're not going to play with the other kids. Sure enough, there was no documentation supporting any of this. As a matter of fact, on the website for the school board, they said that kids don't have to wear a face mask outside. So I ended up talking to the principal. They did, from what I hear, an announcement they talked to all the teachers at school saying that kids are allowed to have their face masks outside. Now, I'm not sure. It seems like these teachers are kind of operating on their own, or the information that is sent out, from what I heard, the school board sent out this information implying that kids need to have their masks on at all times. And the teachers took it upon themselves to really keep their masks on, and they're not allowed to talk at lunch. They're not allowed to interact. Keep your face masks when you play with others. Very dehumanizing, very degrading. And I just can't believe our society allowed that to happen. So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about the current state in the schools. Are things starting to shift? I'm seeing a little bit more. I don't know if the conversation is more acceptable. It's certainly it's being pushed in the wrong direction by the school board. But I do find that people are beginning to speak out against it more. So in that aspect, I think the ball has started to roll in the right direction. What do you think is happening in the schools right now? Is the same kind of behavior being pushed?
Well, it is. It does seem to be that more parents are becoming aware and starting to ask questions, asking questions to their schools, their teachers, and now going to board meetings and stressing that the big one thing that parents are alerted to right now is the explicit pornography books that are in libraries, right? And parents are finding out about this, outraged, wondering who's making these decisions. And now parents are understanding that these books are in school, but I don't think they really have the full background or the scaffolding that goes along with this, right? First, it's the gender pronouns, and then it's the gender ideology in school, the he, him, sure. You get the pronoun on here, the gender fluid, the gender expression. They understand how this is all scaffolding to the end game. There is an end game, and the school boards do have a playbook. they have been following it. I must swear I was kind of not really understanding the playbook until I started putting the dots together. And one would be the safe spaces stickers that were on the school, on the front door of our school. It was the LGBTQ safe spaces sticker. And I went, okay, that's kind of nice, you know, and now it's two stickers on doors. And now it's what the safe spaces sticker really is, you know, and I think more people need to understand where this is going, right? This is not celebrating inclusive diversity at all. It's, you have to conform to this ideology. You have to conform to this narrative. And if you don't conform to this narrative, you are a tinfoil hat conspiracy. You're a terrorist. You know, in the United States, parents were labeled as terrorists by the FBI. They were traced and tracked back. Parents are gaslit. Teachers, when they were speaking out, we had other teachers ratting out other teachers, and then they would be suspended because they're not conforming to the agenda that's in school, right? You're not putting out the posters. You're not putting out the information. You don't have the stuff in your classroom. As we know that the CDC has a rating scale for teachers to be able to put out this propaganda, right? You do this sometimes A, B, or C, and it's quite followed through, and anybody can find that on the web. It's quite interesting how they do this handbook for teachers to bring in this agenda. This is not by coincidence, right? This is the transhumanism agenda. It's getting everybody on board. And if you're not on board, you are separate from society. But in schools, what's happening is teachers are instructed to not tell certain information to the parents, because the parents can be a threat to their child. And we can see that because there's posters on schools from the BCTF, which is the BC Teachers Federation. They have created posters. They're in school hallways. Parents didn't know that. So I had a person who was taking pictures of them for me and showing parents, hey, when's the last time you were in a school and have you checked out this propaganda poster, right? Schools are dividing parents that we know better. Home is not a safe place. And they're telling kids, home is not a safe place. Here you can be a gender pronoun, you can be a furry, you can react this way or that way. You can be free to be whoever you want, and it will be our little secret. And with the manual that was done by Health Canada, instructed schools to do that. That you keep this from the parents.
I want to read you something. Okay. I want to read you something right from our school policy. This is in regards to students who, it says, a school should not disclose a student's gender status to the student's parents or guardians without the student's explicit prior consent. When the school staff contacts the home of a student who identifies as transgender, the student should be consulted first to determine an appropriate way to reference the student's gender identity. Not doing so can potentially put a student's well-being and safety at risk. So this is written down in the policy. They're saying that parents could be a potential risk to their own kids. This is written down. This is not a secret. This is not a conspiracy. This is in their procedures and policies.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is our director said, you know, like these kids in the LGBTQ community and transgender, they're higher risk of depression and suicide. And then I thought, if this is such a serious issue, why are you not communicating this to parents, right? You would think that if your kid is experiencing suicide and high depression at school, you should probably let the parent know. This is not an excuse to keep the parent. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. This is essential that you include the parent in this.
Absolutely. Because the parent should, when I was in the school system, it was a parent-teacher relationship, right? You work together to have that, to have the relationship with home and school, right? It was really important because whatever happens at school, it could have been something that happened at home last night and vice versa. And that was always what it's been. And now it's changed. We're not going to tell you anything. We don't have to tell you anything. And actually the child, if he or she wants to, they'll tell you, right? So we are seeing that. And children are told in schools by teachers that if home is not safe for you to act out your gender identity separate from what your parents think, we have places where you can live, and money, housing, clothing. So any teenager who is rebellious, who, it's pretty natural for parents to get hated at a certain point when children develop, my parents are stupid and blah, blah, blah. Kids are going to go, yeah. What? Really? I can leave home? I can just do this on my own? Well, yeah, we got this and this and this. So that's another part where they capture the kids. But the first part is they ramped up this fear for 2 years. They got people, parents, children, in a state of fear psychosis. When you get people in such a state of fear psychosis, you can get them to do anything, absolutely anything. So when you see someone depressed, mental health issues or whatever, we are trained that we have to look at that. We report it to the school-based team meeting. We get the inside help that they need, and we have a meeting with the parents. Now what they're doing is, oh my gosh, you're depressed, you're having struggles. Well, have you thought about your sexual self? How do you feel about yourself? Where do you see your sexual identity? And they're like, I'm far from sexual identity. I'm struggling. I'm slicing myself or whatever. That's the last thing in their mind. But they get them at that moment where they're confused, not sure of what's going on. Hey, we care about you. Your parents don't really, but we care about you and let's help you. And they're not helping them. They get them on this path of this transgender, their hormones, their puberty blockers. You'll be much happier. Maybe if you transition, you'll be much happier. You'll be socially accepted. You'll have more friends, blah, blah, blah. They set up this, dream state that the child's fear, suicide will be gone. Poof. But they don't tell them what the aftermath of that is, right?
A lifelong.
Costs, heart problems, eye problems, organs. You're actually lopping off your body parts. They're not being told that, hey, maybe when you're an adult and you've decided that if you want to have a family or not, you can't have a family. There is no reproduction because those are yanked out of your body. It's just, and then the social contagion. The social contagion is huge and it's rampant through schools, right? It's now Walmart's posting t-shirts that trans kids' lives matter and a bunch of other stuff. And these t-shirts are out on young kids, right? So you got young kids as human billboards saying that to promote this movement. We've got music, we've got celebrities, we've got kids' cartoons on cable TV. They are bombarded by this social contagion. And anything that we know, if there's a trend, it seems to be that the public hicks on this trend, especially young people, and they go with it. Hey, this is cool. This is hip. I get to, now I'm a she and I'm a whatever. And who's really making money is the doctors. Doctors are doing these surgeries. Children's Hospital is raking in the dough. I have a funny feeling that Transcare BC and the schools are profiting big time off of this. And one parent just told me last week that in her school alone, in every single classroom, elementary school, there's 1 to 3 trans kids in each classroom. Each classroom, not 2 kids in a school of, typically you would have about 500 kids if it's K to 7. That's a lot of students now just, I'm trans, right? It's a huge boost. And it's destroying families because in Canada, if children want to do these procedures, you don't need any parental consent, none. And if you do want to stand up to your child and say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Let's look at the long-term effects. Let's wait for you to get through this natural wave of puberty, right? And let's look at it then. But there was a dad in Surrey who did speak out, and he's in prison. He's in prison for stopping his 15-year-old for doing a lifelong decision that you can't change it back. It's not like, you change your hair color. And he was standing out saying, hey, I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about it. But now in BC or in Canada, there's affirming care. We have to affirm what the child wants. You know, the child doesn't know best. Oh, I'm sorry, the child knows best. It's insanity.
Yeah, 100%. I was out. I did a delegation that went kind of viral, and the school responded with an open letter to this. And when I was out, there was a teacher that noticed and recognized me, and she thanked me for the delegation. And she said, you know, if I could speak out and my job wasn't at risk, I'd be right there fighting with you. And then she said, the effects that this ideology has that we teach in school, they're cutting off the breasts of healthy young women, you know, and it's just a reminder that we've reached a point in society in which this mutilation is applauded and celebrated. I remember watching, now I've mentioned this in my videos, a long time ago, I watched this thing on YouTube. It was about like foot binding in some cultures, and, you know, the women would go through like all these painful things to contort their feet. And they were, the video was saying like they're mutilating the feet of children. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe that they're doing this. How are they thinking this is empowered? Now I look at the state of Canada, and we are way worse. We are literally sterilizing kids medically and physically, cutting off genitals and saying this is empowerment. It does not get any crazier than this. And anybody that speaks out against it is labeled as a phobe or whatever you have. Yeah.
You're a transphobe if you do not conform to this ideology that we want you to agree to.
Imagine sticking up and advocating for children and their rights and saying and preserving their ability to procreate and have a chance at a family. Imagine the values that we have right now in Canada. We've reached a point where if you do this, you know, you're hateful. But if you advocate for the opposite, you know, let's celebrate this, then suddenly, you know, this is empowering. It's just so crazy. I cannot believe that we reached this point.
It's really quite sad. I think on my show that I do, I really try and empower the parents with the knowledge, right? Because with knowledge comes action. That's where we can make the change. And I really wanted to empower parents with this new language that they're bringing in. They're twisting language in their favor, right? And I wanted parents to know that down a hallway, if you see this sign that says BBB, it's not what you think it is. It's breast binders and all these other things. And I said, this is what a breast binder is. You know,
they have that in school.
They do. Yeah. So they're on I had a bulletin board of a picture of what BBB is. It's a chest binder that a young woman can put on. It actually had to place three or four locations where you can get it for free, right? And what it does is it suppresses the female breast tissue to look more masculine. So they're trying to say that if you don't like your body, you can just squish it. But they're not telling kids that when you do these chest binders, what the health effects of that. You're damaging tissue. You're damaging your spine. You're damaging your ribs, the nerves. All of these things in trying to look more masculine than feminine. And it was right on a school bulletin board in a hallway. A parent took a picture of it, and I believe that was in BC, where young teens can just go off without their parents and go get one of these binders. Probably could wear it all day at school. Probably is left in school in their locker. Parents wouldn't have an idea.
So the binder is like a corset that
it's kind of like a corset
that a woman would wear.
Restricts you so that your breasts would be flattened. But when you do that, it does a lot of damage to the body, long-term effects.
I believe that. I mean, you're squeezing tissue, and I mean, you know, sometimes even if you wear pants that are too tight, you know, it's uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine wearing this breast binder, this corset, and it's like the entire upper body, you're squishing it down. You can't even breathe properly. I mean, when I wear a shirt that's too tight, or the collar is too high up and too tight around the neck, and you're having trouble breathing, but you do it because beauty is pain kind of deal, and you got to suck it in. But this is just like, this is a lifestyle, right? This is promoted as something that can heal and something that can transform a person and bring clarity in their life. It's just so crazy.
Well, for sure. I mean, they see it on TV. When you turn on the TV, I mean, I can't tell you how many shows I'm seeing on TV right now, whether it's usually a trans person, or there's a gay relationship, there's promotion of something in this LGBTQ. And I want to make it clear to all your viewers, because I've been attacked verbally. I'm not a homophobic or a transphobic or anything. In fact, I have gay family members myself. Where I have a big, huge issue is that we are shoving this agenda down to minors who are not even thinking a sexual thing. They're too busy wanting to play in the playground, play with the dump truck, hang with their friends. But here we are sexualizing 5-year-olds, and that's where I have a big, huge problem. If you're an adult and you want to transform into another gender, whichever, hats off to you. You're an adult. Your brain is fully developed to make those lifelong decisions. But a 5-year-old can't understand that concept, right? And we can see that in their development. And that's where I think schools have captured these young kids as young as 5 to start this indoctrination, this playbook. Let's just start this in kindergarten, right? It's the pronouns, right? Start off their year with a sticker. Here in Langley, BC, kindergarten of this year, when kids were coming into school, is here's your labels. You got your transsexual or pansexual, blah, blah, blah. Where's the child's name? Mikey, Sophia, Johnny, Jim. That should be the first thing that they learn. My name and my peers' names, what it looks like, what it references to, because that's what you do for social development. But this has become a political, pharmaceutical, a different whole ideology altogether. And that's where I have a huge problem. We have to stop sexualizing 5-year-olds and pushing this narrative down innocent young mind children.
There was a survey done in the school, and this is kind of, I did it myself because the survey was open to everybody. And this was also referenced in the open letter because I did it in the delegation. And the survey was asking any community member, including parents, teachers, students, as young as grade 4. So I did the survey just to give the school some feedback. And on this survey, at the end, it was, what is your sexual orientation? And I said, what? What does this have to do with education?
Nothing.
And then I realized they said the survey is for kids grade 4 and up. On the actual survey itself, it was age 4 and up. Age 4. So I couldn't believe it. They're saying one thing, they're doing something else, and I don't understand how kids are supposed to know their sexuality when they have no sexual experiences. And it's going to be really difficult because at the end of the day, who's going to suffer? It's always the most vulnerable people. Mm-hmm. And because this language is so normalized right now, yeah, and because everybody's talking about all these sexual things, you can't pick out the real victims anymore. Before, if a student would come to school and they would say something that sounded off like, I'm bisexual, in their grade 4 or something, you would think to yourself, something is happening to this kid.
Alarm bells for me would go off. I would be calling the Ministry of Children and Families going, wait a sec, why is a 5-year-old talking about sexual nature? Alarm bells should be going off right away because it's not normal.
So now everybody's talking about it, right? A kid goes, I'm bisexual, whatever, right? And because it's so normalized, you can't pick out the real victims anymore, right? And it's always the people who are vulnerable that suffer. We have the MAID program in Canada. It's trying to bring in people with mental health. You have these kids who are confused, right? Put them on the hormones, put them on medication, lifelong dependence, lifelong costs, right? And you can't even switch out because you just crush your testosterone or estrogen, you crush it. Your body can't produce it anymore. And then you do the surgeries too, the complications and losing nerves and even everything leading up to there, like the binders, and you ruin your tissue. They say they're trying to get self-acceptance. The only thing they're not accepting is themselves.
That's right.
It's like they can't accept that, I'm just a girl and I just want to be myself, just leave me alone, or I'm just a boy, right? If you are a normal human being, there's something wrong with you. And this is the peak of narcissism and the peak of child abuse merging together.
Well, they were saying here, I had a stat. Gender is as you and I were talking, it's becoming a very contentious field, but it's also become a social contagion, right? Everybody jump on the bandwagon. There was numbers of young women have skyrocketed to 2,000%. That's a big number. Questioning their gender, observed in many countries. 2,000%. That's a huge number of young women around the world that are questioning their gender. This is becoming, like you said, socially accepted. And this is where we have to have some grave concern and push back.
Absolutely. Do you find that a lot more parents are beginning to push back and showing up to meetings and the delegations and asking the hard questions?
I do. And I think there's a lot of parents who are frustrated, upset, want to take action, but they're just not sure, how do I take that action? What's the first step I do? What's the language I do? And teaching them to look within their own school board, school district, and looking under your school policies. Under your school policies states resources and education materials. And it says right under there in black and white to the parents that any education materials, posters, anything that's within the school, it is supposed to be transparent with the child, parents, and the school staff. It's supposed to be a full fluid relationship where we're all on board and this is okay bringing forward. And schools are breaking their own policies regarding this. They have written them. Now it's pushing back to the trustees and going, this is your role as a trustee. This is your responsibilities as a trustees, and you're not upholding your bargain. And we have to just really make clear that they are a government public employee. You're a civil servant. You work for the people. When I was a government employee, the people, the public, pay my wages, right? I'm not saying I bend over backwards, but I have to be able to listen back and forth and have some type of relationship. I don't tell them, well, hey, if you don't like it, there's the door. But that's what's happening right now. And they are pinning parents against parents. They're pinning parents against teachers. They're pinning parents against their own children. And it's all about this division, trying to separate everybody from unity, because if you got unity, that's where the true power comes in, right? Got to break up, divide everybody as much as possible through critical race theory, through this gender ideology, through this LGBTQ, through all of this stuff, through all of these divisions, we separate people and put them into these slots. And if you're not put into one of these slots, you're a transphobe, you're a homophobe, you're whatever, or you're one of those angry parents that's telling them what to do. These are the things that parents are being put up against. And these are situations that parents have not had to face before, because usually if parents come to me in the morning and say, hey, when you have sex ed being taught today, my personal belief is that I would prefer that I teach my child sex ed when he or she is ready. And I'd like my child being taken out and be given something else to do, right? So I put that child in the library, give them iPad, books, whatever, crayons, and I respect that. I wouldn't push back to the parent and say, no, sorry, there's not a way that you can opt out of that. but there actually is, and they're not telling parents. On their own school website, there is opt-out ways of opting out sex education. There is other ways of opting out of a special speaker, events. There are people coming into schools that are pushing this like cheerleaders. The parents have no idea that they're in the school during school hours. No forms, no nothing. They're just coming in. And I'll give you a perfect example. There was a school in North Van where it's a private school. During lunch hour at elementary school, their daughter was 12 years old. There was a special announcement on the PA during lunch hour. Hey, if everybody wants, there's going to be a special guest on the playground. If you have any questions about transgender or anything else, he'll be on the playground and you can ask him some questions. There's a man on the playground with makeup and a dress, standing there with no teachers, no school staff, talking to kids about changing over and how great it is. And look what I get to do. I get to do this and this and this. And you have young, vulnerable kids coming up to an adult in the playground. Parents weren't informed about this until this 12-year-old, when she got picked up by her mom the other day, she goes, guess who we had on the playground today? Well, who came over? And then she told her mom the story. That mom was irate. She paid $33,000 a year for her child to get proper education. She was not told about this special guest coming on the school playground, what their agenda is, what they're going to tell the kids. There was no permission of consent. And the rest of the parents during that day had no idea. There's so many things that are going on school that they're not telling parents. They want to keep you ignorant. They want to keep you blind. Because if you start asking questions, you start changing their power structure, you start changing their playbook, and that's when we start making them accountable for their actions. Because a lot of these actions that they're doing are breaking the law. 1,000%. I'm sorry, I'm getting heated up. I had a conversation with the teachers, the president teachers group. I can't say the full name. And I had said, does your teachers not realize that what you are doing by giving pornographic books, by having specific other worksheets that are sexualizing, whatever, don't you see that that's breaking our law, our Canadian law, under 163.1, pornographic distribution, films, materials? That's a criminal activity. What are you doing? And their response was, oh, well, we didn't know that. Well, we weren't given that law. Well, the higher ups didn't tell us that this was breaking laws or doing this and that. I was just like, shouldn't your critical thinking kick in? That if you're giving a unicorn worksheet or a gender worksheet to a child, and the first question that they're asking is, what is your sexual preference? Shouldn't that start kicking in? Or if you're seeing pornographic images that any 5-year-old in a school library can pull out, shouldn't alarm bells start going off for you intuitively?
It doesn't seem like any alarm bells are going off in anybody's heads over there. And actually, just last week, I was heading out to for swimming to do some laps. And the kids, I saw some kids, school was over, so they're just coming out of the school. And I saw these kids, they had like the temporary tattoos and drawings on their faces. They had flags on their faces. And I was like, this is weird. Like, there must have been some special event at the school where they all have the LGBTQ flags. And then as I was turning the corner to go to the pool, I saw these other two girls, obviously with the tattoos on their faces, the flags and stuff. And they had this goodie bag. It was Okay to Be Me, which is an organization that promotes sexuality of kids and stuff, and they claim they're going to help. So these organizations, I mean, I've seen it myself. They're handing out goodie bags to bring the kids in. The parents have no idea what's happening. We had last year in June a drag queen show up at the school, and I doubt any parent was informed, right? They had to shut down the comment section. They were basically saying like the parents or anybody commenting, they're not very friendly, they're not very kind. And honestly, I'm one of those parents, like, I am angry. I am angry because these people, like my daughters, they have no sexuality. They just want to play, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have any experiences, and I'm going to keep it that way, right? And I am angry because they are they're soliciting my daughters. They have materials in the school and they have activities. And I believe educators are disclosing their sexuality to the kids. And they're bringing in special people that try to facilitate the disclosure of sexuality, right? I am angry.
The crazy part. That's the crazy part, is that when I signed up for the school board, we have a workplace environment, how you are to interact with your colleagues, right? No sexual harassment, bullying, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a penalty for that. And then there's a code of conduct that we have to follow amongst staff to staff. But there's no code of conduct on staff to child. The only code of conduct that I was given that was written by a lawyer, by the school board, 2 pages double-sided, was how I should hug a child. 2 pages double-sided that our taxes paid for on how to hug a child. Crazy. But no, we don't have any conduct for, talking about your sexual activity in school. Wait a sec. That's your home life. You should be going to get some adult friends and you talk about that at home. Get back to schooling of reading, writing, and math. I don't care to know about your bedroom activities or what your sexual preferences are, because that shouldn't be in the workplace. You're not here to promote that. You're here as a teacher to facilitate education, not this.
They released their strategic plan in the Waterloo District School Board for the next 4 years, and zero mention of any priorities on academic values like math, reading, English, all of this stuff. Zero. It was all political. It was all sexual. It was all racial. This is what they are focusing everything on, right? Yeah. And when I saw, and the way they structured it, I thought it was pretty clever. They said, you have the students up top, then you have all of these things, and they had kind of like a hierarchy where they put students first, right? And then they said, you can move up and down the hierarchy. Anybody can move anywhere, right? And I found it incredibly concerning because the students, they cannot move up and down the hierarchy. The people who are moving up and down are the leaders who are making the decisions. They come up to the top, they make the decisions, then they go down to the bottom and hide behind everybody, hide behind the students, hide behind marginalized groups, hide behind this victimhood. And I just don't care about their sob stories anymore. I honestly, when I see them peddling, facilitating books and material, including, my delegation had a book including pedophilia, incest, child abuse, right? And they're defending this material and they say like Nobel winning author or whatever. It's like, I don't care what prizes they won. It's like putting a movie, right? You have a kid's movie, I don't know, say like Toy Story, and then you throw a sex scene in the movie, and then people are like, wait, why is there a sex scene? This movie is not child appropriate. Yeah, but this movie, it's a Nobel winning Toy Story. It's like, it's absurd. And with movies, at least you have a rating of 18 plus. With these books, 0. And our director, we had a delegation last year in January by a teacher, and she got caught off early. And the 2 books that she called out, one of them was about a kid joining this club, and they were all the kids in the club were talking about their sexuality, right? And then the other book was about another kid that was transitioning from one gender to the other using medical intervention, right? Trivializing these procedures. Yeah. After the teacher brought these books to the delegation, she got canceled. They took off the video. And then a couple months later, the director decides to make a post on social media. And wouldn't you believe it, the very books that got called out that are available in elementary school were the very books beside him. books promoting sexuality to kids, books trivializing medical intervention, sterilization of kids. These guys, it's unbelievable. And they don't even hide it anymore. You just go and you look at everything they do. You got, like trans celebration days, bisexuality visibility day. Who wants to know the sexuality of my kid, right?
Exactly.
And this is across the board. It's crazy. So you started a website as well, right? Can you tell me a little bit about the website and what it focuses on?
Yeah, so I did a presentation for the Canadian Freedom Coalition, the founder, Andy, and just trying to spread the word on what was going on in our schools with photographs and things so parents could start looking at what's going on. And we came up together and we said, well, let's do something about this. And I felt like I'd been fighting this for 2 years by myself. And we came up with the SOGI International Task Force. We are very much opposing the sexual... SOGI stands for Sexual Orientation Gender Identity, which is in our schools now in Canada. It is worldwide. In other parts of the world, it's called something else, but it's the same program, it's the same curriculum, same policies. So we wanted to expose the sexual orientation, gender identity, and being pushed in school curriculum around the world and empower parents to take back control over their children's education. So that was our vision statement of the SOGI International Task Force. The mission was to create awareness and resources that inform parents, caregivers, and families about the hidden truths about both the sexualization of children in schools and gender dysphoria. We want to provide resources in a way that helps concerned parents to make decisions about the safety, wellness, and education of their children through informed action. We want to collaborate with many like-minded groups throughout the world, including you and Christina's organization, and coming together with facilitating ways of supporting families, but also having available mechanisms for parents, caregivers, other people to stop the harm that's happening to our kids. So we have experts in our group that have PhDs, bachelors, who are specifically in this world of gender identity with transgender, with the hormone blockers, the puberty blockers, with affirming care, all of these things. So we have these experts from Israel that just jumped on board. Alex Aaron, she did the gender mapping. I'll be doing a show with her soon. And Alex Gillies, John Euler, who is the therapist out of Canada. We have other experts from around the world in different countries that we come together because this is a worldwide epidemic in schools. And if we could just come together in unity and creating ways of empowering families, but getting solutions, right? We don't want to just talk about this all day. What are we going to do about it? And we want to do it in a way that's legal, lawful. We want to make sure that parents are not in situations of assaults, physical altercations, right? Because that's not going to get the action we need. And then it's just going to create more name calling on us that we're hateful and we're this, we're that, we're bigots, whichever. So we want to come at this in all angles. But the very important part is doing it without ego, right? Doing it without ego and coming together because we all are very passionate, like you, David, in stopping the harm that's happening in schools, elementary, high school, Christian schools, private schools. It's a huge pandemic around the world, and it's really ramping up. And the more things are ramping up, the more parents are losing control of what's going on in our schools, what's being taught, the things that are going beyond the walls you have no idea about. And parents need to start being aware.
Well, the information that you put out has been a stepping stone for me personally. I feel like we are getting united from coast to coast in Canada. You guys over there in BC, we're over here in Ontario, right? And parents are coming together to tackle these issues, and I'm very happy to see that. Seems like the fruits of your labor are finally coming through. People are starting to pay attention, and the hard work is paying off. And, it's so funny because I was on Instagram having a look at the school post, and they posted this pink shirt day, stop cyberbullying, stop bullying, right? And the comments that I've seen over there, parents, they started commenting and they said, nobody is promoting or happy with bullying, right? Mm-hmm. And the parents said, you are not taking into consideration parents' concerns. You are the one bullying the parents. The teachers are the one bullying the kids. The kids are the victims. We had a thing in Halton Hills where you had the teacher with the large prosthetic breasts, where the school board blamed the kids, and from what I hear, threatens suspension if they take pictures of the teacher, right? Mm-hmm. So an abuser is the one that's being protected. And parents can see right through this BS right now. And when I see every time they post some of this, right, they're just getting absolutely destroyed at their own game. And I know the school board because I'm censored, and they say, oh, we're very transparent and we are accountable. I'm censored from writing comments on this. And I know any parent that speaks out, right, they're going to get cut out. And this is very, I don't know, this might even be criminal, because as public elected officials, people should have access to the information, and they should have access to giving feedback. And if you start censoring people, and if you start blocking people, especially trustees, right, who are elected, and they're blocking people who are giving them criticism, I'm sorry, but you're a public figure. You should be able to take the criticism, right? But instead, they're blocking people from accessing them. And people are obviously very angry about it, right? And they say, oh, you're being hateful. It's like, yeah, am I being hateful, or is your behavior inappropriate? Because, and then they create this echo chamber, right, where they block everybody that they disagree with, and they keep everybody that agrees with them. Now, I'm not saying that you need to not block anybody as a normal person, right? Like, you're not a public figure. If you got Joe Schmo's got an account on social media, you don't have to put up with the verbal abuse. You're not an elected official, right? You can block people, right? But as elected officials, they need to be transparent. And that transparency does come with the ability to listen to criticism. And of course, it's going to come with the trolls online. If you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to make online accounts wanting to connect with people, well, you better hold on, because people are going to be connecting with you. And I see a problem when they continue to be censored, blocked, filtered comments, and all of this stuff. But parents are picking up on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something that you wanted to talk. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, you go ahead.
So there's something that I wanted to talk to you about. It's called the Infant Minor Act. Can you give me a little bit more information on that?
Well, the Infant Minor Act, anybody can look it up on the government website. It is, the Infant Minor Act is telling parents from a certain age that children have to give a consent to whether a medical procedure, I guess it would be like going to a bar, driving a car, all these other things. And the Infant Minor Act was changed, I strongly believe, about 2 summers ago. It used to be 0 to 12 years old. Any parent, caregiver had to give consent for a child to do any medical procedures at all. And that would include the hormone blockers, the human injections, and the other shot. And now that's changed. Parents no longer are able to give consent, that it is overridden, that a professional, whether it be a nurse or a doctor, has that conversation with the child. And as young as 3, 4, 5, they can give consent to these operations, and they don't need parental consent to do any medical procedures at all. It went as far as saying that if parents, this is the crazy part, I had to laugh. If parents wanted to know the health records of the child, now it's gone as far as the parent has to ask the child for permission to look at their medical records. What's going on here? As far as I knew, because I had 3 grown girls, that is my right as a parent. I'm entitled to look at my daughter's medical records anytime I want because it's my children. But now the schools are basically kind of claiming it's our kids. You don't get the rights to their medical records. And if you want them, you're going to go ask a 5-year-old. Are you kidding me? You're going to ask your daughter who's 5, 4, 3, hey, can I look at your medical records? Well, if you just said, no, you can't have cookies before dinner, what, you know what I mean? Like the mindset of a young child. This is ludicrous.
Yeah. So is this act in existence?
Absolutely. Our provincial health officers actually have used it the last couple of years in pushing these medical procedures that, I mean, I don't know if I can say on your show, but pushing the injections that are causing myocarditis, pericarditis. They have used that and promoting it through schools. So in the past, if a child had at school, let's say any vaccinations that happen at school, which there have been in the past years, you know, if you get polio, if you get a measles, mumps, rubella, whatever, those vaccinations were pretty standard. And you could get them done at school by the school nurse, or you could go to your family doctor. Well, now it seems to be that they're doing it at school, and they're doing it at school for a reason. The COVID vaccine is slid in with that. And with that sheet, they're giving a 1-page informative sheet to parents about the Infant Minor Act, basically saying that you have no rights as a parent, that on the day of, if we have the COVID vaccine at the school, if the child chooses to take that vaccine and he's had a conversation with the nurse on site, he or she may be able to choose that. Well, hello, that's going to happen because the majority of kids in their class are probably getting the vaccine. Little Johnny's in the corner by himself. His friends are asking, hey, you coming down to the gym? Are you going to come and get the shot? He's like, oh man, you know, all my friends are going. Well, no, I'll come. Right?
Gonna get a goodie bag and some stickers along with that.
Well, that's true, right? And there were some parents over the last 2 years were sending me emails and phone conversations that they started segregating kids in classrooms with field trips. If you're vaccinated, non-vaccinated, you can go to Science World. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not vaccinated. Well, then you're going to have to stay at school and do some boring thing. Or in the classroom, mask versus unmasked. I heard school buses were actually segregating kids on buses with mask or unmasked or vaxxed or unvaxxed, like Rosa Parks days, you know, sit at the back of the bus. They were also being told that principals in hallways were giving candies to kids if you got the vax or not, high-fiving them.
You know,
parents don't know this.
They don't. And
one parent,
there was something.
One parent called me crying because her son now is double jabbed. Right? She was vomiting in the bathroom. She was so upset because it's irreversible. She had told her son, do not get this. This is why. This is information. And the school coerced him. But now she can't sue the school because, you know, her son said, okay, I'll get it. He gave consent.
This consent is going to spill over to sexual relations as well, where you have mature minors, what they refer, where they can give consent to having sexual relationships with adults. And it's all connected, right? Because once you are able to bring in a piece of legislation, then it's, well, if this is possible, why not this as well? And this is how people have access to children. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, you know, they're just really, the new term as well coming out is adult attracted minors and minor attracted adults, right? It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And it's really just a way to have a positive twist on pedophilia, right? And I was thinking, if you have to go back in history and make some connections. I always go back to, well, I like to think when the Germans were oppressing the Jewish people, and they were doing all these things to them, right? Justifying, and people would say, if I was there, I would never contribute to this. How can anybody contribute to this, right? Look how many people are contributing to this. And there's something disturbing when you have to go back in history to draw parallels between the attempted destruction of a nation, because there's an attempted destruction of kids. There's a war on kids and parents, right? Mm-hmm. I have to go back in history and draw parallels from the world wars, and saying, people, I would never contribute. Look at what you're contributing to now, right? Nobody is saying anything. It was the same thing then, right? You had the kids in school. You had them all in the propaganda that we're better. These people are causing us pain. We need to destroy them. And it's the same thing. You got to wear the arm patch, if you're a Jew, you got the Star of David. If you're part of the party, you got their symbol, right? Just a clear distinction. This is us. This is them. And they are. It's crazy. Yeah. Ronnie, before I let you go, is there anything that you would like to share with me that you feel that we haven't touched base?
Well, sorry to put a plug in, but myself and a fellow trustee candidate are starting a show every Friday called Fearless Fridays. And it's to get parents out of that fearless state, to empower them, to give them courage to stand up to these bullies in our school system, some on our sports teams, in our workplace and everywhere. So we really want to empower families, parents, caregivers, even concerned adults who are stepping in and wanting to raise questions to them. I really want parents to you are the first line of defense for your child. It's not me. It's not David. It's not any other organization. It's you. And you as a parent know how to stand up for your child. You've been doing it your whole life. This is just a different circumstance. And I know it's a circumstance where there's so much learning that's going involved. We've never been in this place where we actually have to defend our children's privacy, rights, gender, sexuality in schools of all places. We've handed over our trust and our control to the schools, and we need to start reversing that. We need to start reversing that. No, the power and control is me as a parent, and these are what I find best for my child. And we need to make that very clear. And if they're trying to gaslight you, that's okay. Just walk away. Don't engage. You stand firm, stand strong. This is my child. I love my child. They don't love your child as much as you. You love your child as much as you. And you know what's best. Not school knows best, because they're trying to tell that to your child, and you need to reverse that. I'm asking parents to stop and question things and really start to investigate about what is going on in your schools. Have these conversations with your children in the car, when you pick them up at 3, at the dinner table. Start asking questions. Don't just ask general questions like, how was your day at school? Because kids are going to say, oh, it's fine. I hang out with Joey and we played soccer in the backfield. No, ask deeper questions, because these young kids in these schools don't understand or have the capacity to realize that what they're being taught is inappropriate and illegal. They're not telling kids that you as a child, that you have rights, that this is a criminal act, you should go to a police officer, nobody should be touching you. All of these things, they're not informing or empowering kids, and that's where we need to do that. More and more people really need to become aware of what's happening in our education system. And we need more people to open their eyes and listen and question it all and get used to being uncomfortable. Because when we get used to being uncomfortable, that's where change starts to happen. That's where the dialogue starts to happen. Because our kids don't know that they're being exploited, that they're being preyed upon, that all of these behaviors that's going on, they don't know that this is not normal, not okay, inappropriate criminal activity until you start having those conversations with your kids. Then you start understanding what's going on here? And from that's when you can make the change.
And where can people find you having these discussions? I'm going to be linking all of these in the descriptions on the YouTube videos.
They can find me at RH Media, Standing for Children, on YouTube. I have a show, and our Fearless Fridays will start this Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. They can also find us at SOGI, www.sogi123taskforce.com. You'll be able to see lots of information, resources. What is SOGI? What is being taught? Worksheets that you may not be aware of that's in your child's classroom, posters, other things. We are developing a parent toolkit so that you can print off a PDF, hand out forms to a teacher, school board trustee, have out opt-out forms so that you can just present it to your teacher and say, under this act or under whichever, I have the right under religious belief, blah, 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 to be able to take my child out of this scenario. And then we also have a SOGI news desk where we're going to be having many interviews with people around the world, experts, to be able to learn more about this indoctrination, this sexualization, how to protect your kids, the mind of a predator, all of these things that will help them.
Ronnie, I just wanted to thank you so much for having this discussion with me. Thank you so much for all the work that you have been doing. And I just want to encourage all the listeners and the viewers to check out Ronnie's work. I hope that this conversation really helped. And just as a reminder, I have a few other podcast episodes out. One of them, or two of them, I'm going to say, includes our mutual friend, Pierre Barnes, who is very outspoken and very up to date with the books available in the libraries. He does reviews to those. You can see the content for yourself, make up your own mind to see if this is appropriate. Do not take it from the school board and do not trust them. Have a look. You are the parent and you are intelligent. A couple other episodes as well. Episode 1 with Christina Fernandez, where I go through the policies, procedures, and practices, and I show you exactly what's written down and view the delegations. Ronnie, you have a ton of great material up on your channel as well on YouTube. I can't wait to link it, and it's a wealth of information. And once again, thank you everybody who've made it this far in the video. I'm really excited to have this information coming to you. Can't wait to put more content out, and just wanted to wish you all the best. And until next time, take care.